Heartbreak for the Bears on Sunday as they came within 3 minutes of a famous win in Cumbria. We've got the reactions from that epic match coming right up, as well as a look ahead to this weekend's season finale. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bears Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bears Necessities, your podcast all about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts and more. And we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents and York's Tim. Now, a bit of a different show this week as I'm flying solo. My regular co-host Craig Cathcart is taking a well-earned holiday at the moment, but he will be back on these shores for this weekend's game against Hunslet. So he will be back on the show next week. Anyway, this week, coming up on the show, I chat to Bears head coach Tom Tsang about Sunday's gutting 24-20 defeat away to Whitehaven. And on top of that, I also got an interview with Steve Mascord, one half of the International Rugby League merchandise specialist Mascord Browns, who are bringing their pop-up stall to the Butts Park Arena for Saturday's match. So do stick around to hear that interview and find out some of the goodies you can treat yourself to on Saturday. But first, some important bits of news for you. So number one, the Bears supporters group now has some official social media channels, so do make sure you are following them. Be sure to check out at Coventry Bears SC on Twitter. That's at Coventry Bears SC, and also search for Coventry Bears SC on Facebook. Get involved, show them your support as we head into 2019. And number two, please also make sure that you've got the RFL's Our League app on your phone and that you select the Bears as your chosen team. Not only is the app full of great content, including a League One game streamed live to the app every week, but it's also really important to register as a Bears fan on there. The amount of registered fans we have on there could have an effect on the Bears funding going forward. So please do download the app, show your support to the club. It's just search for the Our League app in your app stores. It only takes a few minutes to set up, and you can select the Bears as your team on there. And also, I've used the app all season. It's genuinely very good. There's a predictions game in there, which gives you a chance to win some very cool prizes. Loads of interviews and old video clips on there, and some very good coverage of international stuff. So get involved, get the app, pick the Bears as your team when you set up your profile. And number three, you should know this already, but this Saturday's game against Hunslet at the Butts Park Arena is the final match of the season. So do come on down, 3 p.m. kickoff, bring your pocket money to spend at the Mascord Browns stall, and stick around afterwards for some end of season awards and a well-earned beer. Right, let's get on with the show. And to Sunday's agonising 24-20 loss away to Whitehaven. The Bears ended up only being able to make the 6-hour journey with 16 players, and yet came incredibly close to a famous win, with Whitehaven only taking the lead with 3 minutes to play. Now, I wasn't able to make the trip north on Sunday to see it in person, but on Monday I was able to catch up with Bears head coach Tom Tsang, who took me through an emotional roller coaster of a game.
We came away from the game, everyone was, it was a mixed emotion, as you could imagine, sort of a mix of pride in the performance of the players. We, due to circumstances with injuries and availability, people working, we were only actually able to travel with 16 players. And so for us to put in what I think is probably our best performance for the season, even though we didn't get the win, and off the back of a 6-hour journey to get there was a real credit to the lads, because on paper there's not that much for us to play for. On paper for Whitehaven, they're still chasing promotion and all that comes with that. So there should have only been one outcome really if you look at the balance of it. But yeah, we really dug in and showed really what we're capable of, what we have been capable of, and what we should be striving for in the future.
Yeah. So take me through the story of the game, because I was following closely on Twitter and kind of begging that the team would hang on, and it obviously sort of fell apart with the last few minutes. But I mean, the Bears were in front for quite a lot of the game, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. We conceded early, which I don't know. We spoke a lot about in the changing rooms about starting strongly, and our first set, to be fair, was not too bad. But then we gave away a couple of penalties early doors in the first couple of defensive sets, and yeah, they just caught us cold really defensively. Went over in the first couple of minutes, and we sent some pretty strong messages on to make sure that wasn't what the afternoon was going to be about. And we bounced straight back. We were competitive for the next 5-10 minutes. We forced an error from a very good kick from Brad Sheridan down the line, and put some pressure on their fullback who dropped it. And off the scrum from that error, we executed a set play which put us in under the posts. And from there on in, really, it was we were, in my opinion, the better team, playing the better rugby, creating more chances, and we forced another error through our defensive process for Hayden to break away. He went probably 50-60 metres to score again, and realistically, it was more just the penalties that we gave away at times, which let us down defensively, and that's been something that we've sort of battled against all season. Really, just a bit of naivety, knowing when you can and can't the play, which gave them field position. But loads of times we were repelling them from our line. We were defending really, really well. And realistically, it was only their one player, the player coach Carl Foster, who was excellent, by the way. He was really sort of inspirational for them, that created any sort of opportunity for them, and was obviously very, very hard to handle across the line, and was able to twist and turn 3 times to barge his way over. But our tries were sensational, the ones that we scored in particular. Reece Rance in the second half, which took us to gave us the 8-point advantage with 20 minutes to go, was a sensational catch and pass from Cam Pierce-Paul in the first place, and then a diving effort into the corner from Reece, which was probably our try of the season without doubt. So some really positive stuff, and just the way that the guys worked hard for each other and kept going to the end of the game. Even when we went down with 3 minutes to go, we still kept fighting, still kept trying to push for an opportunity. So all good things. Shame it's kind of sort of the penultimate game of the season and we can't genuinely build on it down the track, but it's certainly one that we can work with for next week.
And I mean, this feels like a bit of a tough question for you to answer. I was going to ask if there are any standout performers, but I'm guessing given that you pushed Whitehaven so close and you only had 16 players, I'm guessing every one of those 16 stood up and put a good shift in.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single player that travelled up with us was sensational, really. I thought Hayden was a handful every time he touched the ball. Reece Rance and Cam Pierce-Paul created a lot of opportunities and made 2 or 3 clean breaks that we couldn't quite finish off with points. Ben Stead and Brad Sheridan worked really well together and controlled the game for us. In the pack, we had Peter Ryan, who played the whole first 40 minutes and then did another 25 minutes stint in the second half. James Gurchans and Mal, when they came on, were strong with the carries. Baz and Kieran in the second row were excellent, and Harry Kaufman, obviously on his second game back from his trip to America, was good as well. But I think if I had to single out one player, it would be Liam Rice-Wilson, who is not the biggest of lads, and Whitehaven certainly are a big pack, but he played 80 minutes at hooker, which is a very, very tough thing to do. And was excellent throughout. So I think probably he would get the man of the match from me. But yeah, it was definitely the epitome of a team performance.
Yeah, and Liam seems to have really grown in stature and performances of this last half of the latter half of the season, hasn't he? We've been talking about him increasingly in our post game chats.
Yeah, I think earlier on in the season he was obviously a player that had come through our trial process that we had in October, which feels like a long time ago. And we weren't sure how much he would play in the early stages, but he just worked hard. He's had things that we've tried to work on him with, and he's definitely improved. And with other players in that position, picking up knocks and injuries, he's had more and more opportunities to play, and he's he's really stepped up every time we've asked him to the point now where he would be our first choice 9, regardless of any other player that play the position. So he's probably certainly at least one of our most improved players, and it's really good to see that we've given someone that opportunity, and he's been able to then take it and run.
Yeah. So just moving away from Sunday for a moment, we've obviously the other big bit of news over the weekend was the finally settling on a structure for 2019. What are your thoughts on how League One's looking for next year? Are you pleased with that as a structure going forwards?
Yeah, I'm still undecided on sort of the state of play for the game in general. Obviously, it impacts on our division. It means that there's going to be fewer teams in the competition. We don't know exactly what that means in terms of fixture structure, whether it will be so we're looking at 12 teams, so that's potentially 22 games, I think, and I don't know whether we're going to be supplementing those games with other fixtures or even maybe loot fixtures or something to get us back up to what we were this year. Whether there's going to be any other teams entered, there's been rumours for probably the last 12 to 18 months about other teams that could still at any point be dropped into the league. So yeah, it's difficult to say really how it will impact us. All I can say is that we just need to keep focusing on us and making sure that we make our own improvements. Yeah. And I'm glad that this ongoing dispute between Super League and the Championship and League One and the RFL is now on the face of it resolved, and we can all just move forward. Whether you agree with it or not, we can go forward now.
Yeah, and I guess looking at how it's worked out for this year with Bradford and York, obviously that they're in the Championship now, and there's going to be one other joining them through the playoffs this year, and only one coming down. It feels like for the first time in a while, there's not necessarily a big name in League One. Do you think the league feels a bit more open for 2019, and there's perhaps opportunity for you and your players to build on what you've done this year and maybe look upwards in the table?
Yeah, definitely. You never know exactly what the other teams in the league will be doing, so I would suggest that the likes of Newcastle and Doncaster will see it as a massive opportunity for them to invest and want to push towards the top of the league. There's already some news of signings that other teams are making, and I think those two teams in particular look like they're going to be strong next year. For us, again, it's an opportunity for us to keep improving, and like I said just now, it's up to us to just keep focusing on ourselves and keep striving to improve on our own performances and on our own on-field and off-field operations. And obviously the biggest part of that for me as coach will be to try and retain as many of the current players that we've got, so that results like what we had against Whitehaven aren't then lost in a rebuild of a squad that we've had in previous years. So we're all working hard behind the scenes to try and lock down as many as we can of the current squad, and we've still got our eyes peeled for talent that we can bring in, but while still staying true to the sort of the local Midlands or sort of within Coventry, West Midlands, East Midlands boundaries for players. So that's the focus for now.
So obviously there's one game left, Hunslet at home this Saturday. What are you expecting from that as a game, and what do you think you can take from the heartbreak on Sunday into this weekend for that final go around?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had really tough games against Hunslet, and they're a team full of experienced players, and they will be wanting to improve on this weekend's performance that they lost against Newcastle fairly heavily at home. I think the week before that they lost fairly heavily to Whitehaven as well. So they've had a couple of heavy defeats, and I think they'll be wanting to finish the season strong. And I know their coach Gary Thornton is a very proud man, and he'll be wanting his players to sort of bounce back and finish the last game well. So it's not going to be an easy game by any respect. But when we played them away earlier in the year, it was a pretty even contest, in all honesty, and I think they scored 3 breakaway intercept tries, which they converted, and they ended up winning by 18 points, I believe. So we know that we're capable of matching this team in particular, but from the back of the Whitehaven game, we know that if we play anywhere close to the way we played against Whitehaven, that we give ourselves every chance. And like I said earlier, that performance against Whitehaven shows what we are capable of when we apply ourselves and when we execute the plan that we go into a game with. And it is a bit of a shame that we weren't able to capture that form more consistently throughout the season, because we've shown it in patches very regularly. So we'll be looking for another performance close to that one, and we think that we can get the win.
Yeah. And just lastly, I mean, obviously you mentioned just then about working behind the scenes to lock down players for next season. So there's obviously the chance that there will be some players playing at the weekend, and it might end up being their final game for the Bears. One player we do know it's going to be his last game for the Bears is James Gertens, because he's back off to Australia after the season's done. Just really to round off, just a word on Gertch and his impact at the Bears, because he's been there from the start of the League One journey, and he's a real credit to the club on and off the field, isn't he?
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of James. When he was our first ever signing when we first moved into the league, right from my very first conversation with him on Skype from the other side of the world, I knew that he was the sort of character and bloke that we wanted involved. He understood where we were. He was excited about the fact that we were a new club and that we were wanting to build, and he wanted to be part of that. He knew that we weren't a sort of a glamour club that were going to be challenging for honours in our first few years, and he fully bought into that, and he brought the right attitude with him, and on the field he's been a real leader for us, especially in those first 2 or 3 years when we didn't have anywhere near the experiences we would have liked. He was just the sort of the ever-present older head that knew what to say at the right times, training in the changing rooms. Albeit he's a fairly quiet bloke when it comes to that side of things, but he just the odd word here and there, and obviously everyone knows he leads by example when he's on the field, and he's going to be missed. There's no doubt about it, in terms of just him as a player and as a friend and as a bloke within the team, but also on the field. I think a lot of people look towards him, and when he's not in the side and he's not selected, we all know that it's going to be a little bit harder for everyone else. So yeah, it's with sadness that he goes, but obviously wish him all the best, and I'm sure whatever he does after this will be very successful. Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Well, Tom, looking forward to going round one more time at the weekend, and I will see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Dave. I'll see you there.
Huge thanks as always to Tom for joining the podcast, and hard lines to him and the players for being denied the win their performance deserved. Fingers crossed that the win does come on Saturday. Okay, talking Saturday, the Bears are welcoming some special guests to the Butts Park Arena. And I don't just mean Hunslet, but I mean Mascord Browns, the place to get your International Rugby League merchandise. So ahead of their visit to the Midlands, I caught up with one half of the company, Steve Mascord, to hear about the business, chat about International Rugby League, and find out what might be on sale in Coventry on Saturday afternoon. Spain and Albania fans, get excited.
Yeah, this is Steve Mascord. I used to write stories for a living, and now I flog merch. And I still write a few stories because I'm not making enough money flogging merch yet. And I'm from Wollongong, Australia, and I now live in South London, and happy to answer any other questions.
Great stuff. Well, Steve, welcome to Bears Necessities podcast. Thanks for taking the time to join me. I guess the starting point is tell me a bit about Mascord Browns. I mean, as you put it, you're flogging merch now. So, what is it exactly? What do you do? How did it all get started? What's the story there?
Well, it actually started about 2 years ago. Phil Brown, who runs Tritag Rugby in the UK, has been very successful, huge numbers, and he's got quite a big staff. I think I first had some contact with Phil when he was involved in the Singapore Rugby League, and he subsequently, was a driving force in the Fijian Rugby League group that started in Australia, which then eventually started working with the Fijian Rugby League group from Fiji. So he's a real go-getter. And anyway, and he was living here in London, and it's a small rugby league community here in London. I like to say there's probably a bigger rugby league community in Wagga Wagga than there is in London. And so everyone kind of knows everybody. And Phil just said, you can't get international rugby league merch anywhere. we should go into business and we should do it. And it was a year before either of us lifted so much as a finger to do anything about it. But I guess when I kind of decided, I got married 2 years ago and decided that I was going to come here full time. And Phil kind of was maybe looking for a new challenge as well. So we finally did it. All those pub conversations you ever had with a mate about doing something, that most of them don't come to anything, but this is one that has. So we've been up and running now for 11 months, and I would say it's been successful. I mean, neither of us have actually drawn much money out of it yet because it's a new business, but there's a lot of interest, but reasonably high profile. And I love doing the pop-up stores because you just sit around and shoot the breeze with people. It's really, really fun. So, and we're coming to Coventry this weekend to do it.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, we'll talk about that a bit later on because, as you say, you are going to be at the Butts Park Arena. I'm curious, why did you decide to put the focus on sort of mainly international gear rather than club stuff? Is it just because, as you say, international gear is difficult to get hold of and you wanted to make it easier, or have you got a particular affection for the international game?
All of the above. I think we both do. I explained to you Phil's background with Singapore and Fiji, and I'm always been a fan of international rugby league and have kind of written about it a lot. And I guess you might call it a midlife crisis if you want to, but I kind of figure it's enough of just talking about things. It's time to sort of do things. I'm 49 now, so so I saw. But the reason from a commercial point of view is it was a hole in the market. NRL gear is quite easy, relatively easy to get here in the UK, not at live stores, like not at grounds and stuff, but there's a couple of stores in the north that specialise in it, and there's a big mail order business. And there's a kind of artificial trade barrier there too, where the jerseys are so much more expensive in Australia, and the suppliers, from what I understand, don't let the English retailers and mail order companies send back to Australia. We didn't want to be an English-only company. We've got quite a lot of stock in Sydney at the moment, which gets sent from Sydney, and we'd like to do stuff in America. It just didn't make sense to get involved in that sort of stuff. We wanted to be straightforward and get permission off the countries to approach their supplier. Approach a supplier. Do it all straightforward, and then wherever you live, you can buy it. And we might go into clubs, but I'd imagine when we do, we'll start off being obscure clubs. We're probably more likely to do Albi before we do the Sydney Roosters, to be honest.
Yeah, and what do you find draws people to different countries when they're buying stuff from you? Do you think people tend to go to countries that they have some sort of a link to, or is it just they look at stuff that they think looks cool and they'd want to wear it?
Both, I think. Sorry to be giving that answer all the time.
Right.
Both, everything. But yeah, I think that we had an instance at Warrington where this young lad bought a Tonga jersey and a replica, as some of the listeners might want to call it, or shirt, as some of the other listeners might want to call it. And his dad got out the credit card, and Phil said, "Oh, do you have any Samoans playing for Warrington?" He bought us. Do you have any Samoans playing for Warrington? We want. I know you got a couple of Tongans, and the lad didn't want the Samoan jersey anymore. I just smack Phil upside the head, save the small talk till after the sale, But so people, that is one of the connections, is if they've got a player from that country. Like we went to Widnes and a guy bought a bunch of PNG stuff because he got a connection there. And I imagine if we, there's I think Rochdale's got a strong connection to Fiji. They might have a favourite player, or they, I living here in London, it surprised most people to hear, but living in London, if I go to the gym, that's not the thing that's surprising. If I go to the gym, I see more rugby league gear than any other sport by a country mile, like much more than Premier League soccer. Like, and it's St Helens stuff, it's New South Wales stuff, it's New Zealand Warriors. I saw a pair of Catalan shorts the other day. It's like if you, like I was at a bunch of, I went to 3 gigs in a row over the weekend, and it's people comment on your T-shirt. It's like it marks you as being part of a tribe, and I guess wearing an international rugby league jersey is counterintuitive. You're kind of educating the non-believer that rugby league isn't an M62 sport or just a Sydney and Brisbane sport, You're kind of not only representing rugby league, but you're representing aspirational part of being a rugby league supporter by wearing international jersey around. So it is like wearing the most obscure band T-shirt you've got in your closet because you're going to a show full of cool people and you want them to be impressed by you. It's sort of the same principle,
I like it. I really like that as an analogy. I noticed on your online shop, you've got those amazing tartan shorts from Scotland's World Cup campaign last year. And it got me thinking, what are some of your most popular items?
Yeah, everyone wanted those, but when we got them in, they didn't sell. They're selling well now, but they didn't go out the door like we thought they would. The Tonga stuff goes really well, especially the jersey, and Samoa jersey goes very well, and all the PNG like leisure gear, like the singlet and the training top and the polo. Now polo's kind of, some people just would never wear a polo, would they? I guess below a certain age, you kind of balk at wearing a polo. But the PNG one seems to be the exception because of how striking the colours are, So, yeah, I'd say, but off the top of my head, they're the ones that seem to be. We'd probably, after 11 months, we've just been scrambling around from week to week. I guess we don't really have definitive data on what actual item. I mean, we sell Wolfpack stuff, right? So it's the only place in the UK you can get Wolfpack stuff. So I would say that probably the most popular item we have by default is and plus we have actually sold the Nat Wolfpack game. So the most popular item we have by default is like the black Wolfpack jersey. You know what I mean? But I mean, if you're talking about the more discretionary spend where, we're actually not necessarily dealing with, PNG Kummels fans first and foremost when they come to the game and they decide to buy a PNG Kummels shirt, I would say that, as I said, I'd say probably that all the PNG stuff and the Samoan and Tongan jerseys, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. It's been an interesting year for the international side of the sport. I mean, we've had the Denver Test, and then there's all the subsequent fallout from that and the questions around the 2025 World Cup. And there's been all the talk about what the international calendar should look like and all of that discussion. Where do you think the international game is at right now? Are you excited about the future of international rugby league?
Yeah, I am. It's unfortunate. The whole Denver thing, it's unfortunate that it didn't go very well. I'm sure if you spoke to Jason Moore, he would put some of the blame, a large part of the blame on that for the NRL for constantly casting doubt as to whether the match would go ahead. So there wasn't time to sell tickets. But the biggest thing there is obviously the World Cup 2025. There's now doubt over that being in the United States. But, there is a lot to be excited about. There's World Cup qualifiers going on at the moment. The level of coverage is improving all the time. The level of sponsorships improving all the time. The National Federation now has 3 employees and not 1. There's a lot of sort of partnerships coming up. Even I guess what we're doing, is showing that we're sort of throwing our eggs in the basket of the international game and saying this is an expanding area of the sport commercially, and we want to be on that train. So, I'm really excited. I'm excited about the Kiwis visit at the end of the year. I'm excited about the European, championship games, and I'm excited about the Emerging Nations World Cup. If a bunch of money drops in my account in the next 2 weeks, I might hop on a plane and go to that. I don't know when that's likely to happen, but So despite I'm excited about Toronto, and reading today in the League Weekly about Eric Perez being involved in other franchises in the United States, and and I've been to I went to Toronto game this year, and I went to 2 last year, and I just love that. I'm all about that, and about being in a new city with new people who don't have some of the prejudices that we're subject to, in the game's old world,
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing you're also a fan of expanding the club game, and obviously you're coming to the Bears on Saturday. Bears part of League One, which has sort of become this development league for expansion clubs, and we've seen Toulouse and Toronto come through it recent years, and there's been talk this season of New York, of Belgrade and Dublin. Do you think that getting more overseas clubs involved in League One is the way to go, or should we actually take this point and have a couple more years to really give a bit more backing to those domestic expansion clubs like Coventry, like Hemel, like West Wales, get them a bit more established, and then start the next round in?
Look, I think, if you go broke, right, they hit you over the head again, and they deduct points the following year. I think I don't see how there's no punishment for not being and it's sad, and it's sad when a club goes broke and they get punished. But in order to maintain the integrity of the competition, I just can't see how teams can be fielding 12 players, and not being able to fill the bench. And I know it happens in Toronto with visa issues and stuff, but is that? I think you're right that we have to make sure if. You just couldn't comprehend it in Australia. Like, I guess the equivalent level might be, below the New South Wales or Queensland Cup. So, you might be talking Ron Massey Cup or, one of those sort of competitions, or the Brisbane Rugby League. You just couldn't conceive of a team not being able to field, not even having 13 players, let alone not having 17 players. It's just unheard of at a professional level. And I honestly, if you can't put 17 players in your first team, now I know it's a four of the structure here where they just don't have those links or feeder teams like professional teams. Because I was in Australia, I guess I looked through those glasses. But I think a professional club should have a network of amateur clubs underneath it, feeding into it. I don't think it should be a standalone entity, and I know that's the reason why we have these situations, but I don't think you're a professional team or a part-time professional team if you can't put together 17 players. And I think, we've really, really got to look at that and actually, and sort of have some sort of quality control before you can call yourself a professional club. So, yeah, I think it doesn't matter where the team is from. If they're going to pay the bills to compete, then they should be treated equally. But if you can't field 17 players, then it's time to go back to a lower level and build yourself back up again. And in my opinion, and you need the help of the RFL to do it. And you're right, you shouldn't be adding to a competition where we have that issue where teams call themselves professional and yet they haven't got a team, and then we're trying to add more teams to that competition. I don't think that's the right way to go. But second to that is There is a thought that with people like Colin Quellig behind Red Star Belgrade, and maybe if a few other if we can get a rich guy in Dublin, that perhaps the lower half of League One could become a European league. Travel's the issue, but as I said, you get a couple. Colin obviously has got a little bit of money, and some other people have got a little bit of money, and they do have a Balkan Super League with enormous travel, and I believe that they often struggle to field players, full complement of players too. But perhaps the bottom half of League One would be better off being positioned as a European league, where like is playing like, and and if West Wales can make sure they can pull together 17 players every week, they might be better off playing Red Star Belgrade or Dublin Blues than playing Bradford Bulls.
Hmm. No, interesting stuff. So, obviously, we'll bring it back to Saturday, and Mascord Brands, as we mentioned, are going to be at the Butts Park Arena for the Bears' final home game of the season. So, I guess two parts to a question. How much are you looking forward to coming up to the Midlands and experiencing the Bears, and what sort of things are you going to have on offer for Bears fans on Saturday?
Well, that's a great question. gives me the opportunity to give a great hard sell type answer. But the truth is that I went to the Ricoh Arena for the Four Nations a couple of years ago, and it was so cold I didn't go outside. I actually watched both games in the press box. So I actually haven't. I've technically been at a game in Coventry, but I didn't witness it with my own eyes. I watched it on TV. So I'm looking forward to actually being outside this time, and I'm looking forward to the weather being a lot nicer. We've got. I mean, you look at mascotbrands.com, and we've got I guess about 10 countries. Jerseys, polos, singlets, blah, blah, blah. But we've also got some oddities we've got Gavin Willis's No Helmets Required book signed by Gavin, and we've got my book if you're really desperate. We've got the Denver Test Match program, which is extremely rare. I think they're going for £14 on eBay. They're $3.75 with us. Mm-hmm. a lot of Toronto stuff, some Toulouse stuff. We've got some Toulouse Super 8 t-shirts, and I guess I should be talking about stuff that's come in only recently or will be in this week. We're expecting Albania and Spain stuff this week, so in all likelihood we won't have time to put that on the site. We'll just bring it up to Coventry with us. Mm-hmm. So you get the first shot at that stuff, and when it's gone, it's gone. I don't think we've bought enormous numbers, but I love the Spain jersey, and the Albania stuff is great because we're the naming rights sponsor. So there you go.
Oh, brilliant stuff. So obviously you mentioned mascordbrowns.com is the website. Are there any other bits you want to plug? Any social channels that people should check out?
Well, actually, I'd love to have a chat to the club about some of the live content you do and about streaming in the off season. I've played around with rugbyleaguehub.com for several years now. It was a website, and at the moment the website's sort of being renovated, being rebuilt. But what I've kind of turned it into is a live hub on Facebook. I think Proper Sport, we all owe them a debt of gratitude for trying out a lot of technologies in rugby league with Bradford and York in particular. Mm-hmm. And so, what I've been putting up there is we've been playing Rugby AM. Rugby AM in its entirety isn't available outside the UK. So I've been playing Rugby AM out once a week in a time zone that's friendly to Australians. Mm-hmm. And we've been playing out Backchat in a time that is friendly to Torontonians. And we had a live game at the weekend from Newcastle, the local league, our first live game. And I've been doing a sort of video chat with a guest once a week on a Wednesday night UK time, and that's Facebook.com/League Hubcom. A lot of people will say, how do you hope to commercialise that? Good question. I'm looking for suggestions. But the good thing is we can promote Mascord Brown stuff on there, and I'd like to think that when we build an audience that there will be people who want to reach that audience. So it's basically everything that's not nailed down by the big channels. I'm trying to make Facebook.com/League Hubcom a sort of nexus for that stuff. So I'd love it if listeners will come and give it a like and tell me what you think.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Well, Steve, thanks again so much for taking the time to join me. Just one last thing before I let you go, and obviously we'll see you on Saturday, but I want to know your prediction for Saturday's game. Do you think you're going to be there to see the Bears round out the season with one more win?
I think they will win. I'm definitely on their side because they're on ours. And it's interesting, isn't it? We were going to go to London Broncos the next day against Salford, mm-hmm. and with 5 days' notice, they just moved that game to Saturday. So that's really hard on fans, isn't it? I can't believe there's one guy on Twitter says he's spent $200 on train tickets for himself and his family to come down to the game on Sunday, and now he can't use the ticket. So surely the RFL or Sky are liable for that. Mm. But anyway, I'm tipping a Bears win. Definitely Bears win. Yep.
Great stuff. Well, Steve, look forward to seeing you in real life on Saturday, and speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me on the program. Thank you.
Huge thanks to Steve for his time. Make sure you bring some spending money and visit the Mascord Browns stall on Saturday. Buy some stuff, chat with Steve and Phil. Enjoy the fact that they are there in Coventry with us. Okay, that's it for this episode. Craig will be back with me next week to chew over the final game of the season, so do join us for that. And don't forget, we live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts and more. And we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents from York's Tim. If you fancy sponsoring the show next year, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. But other than that, we will see you at the Butts on Saturday for one more game in 2018. And we'll be back to bring you all the analysis and reaction next week. Thanks for listening. See you soon.